First beside the river, wash the journey from your hand.
And if anything,
Feel the comfort glow inside you.
Hello,
Come
welcome to Healing
this-
Outside the Box. This is our 138th show. And my name is Rosemary Lachance. I'm an energy healer and a spiritual therapist.
And my name is Lisa Burton. I'm a holistic and mindful educator.
And we are co-hosts for this thought-provoking series and are dedicated to providing you with food for thought information and answers to all modalities of alternative healing, spiritual development, animal welfare, environmental concerns, and so much more in the form of guest speakers who are experts in their fields. If you know of any subjects that you would like us to discuss, or if you know of anyone who you think would make an interesting guest, please let us know. And please like us on Facebook under Healing Outside the Box, where you can learn about and see pictures of some of our guests, past guests, and ask questions or leave a comment. Enjoy the show.
Wonderful. Tonight we are delighted to have Kathleen Schurman. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome. And
Nice
her
to be
husband, David Melina. His official title
And
is
I'll
husband.
catch you all later.
And Kathleen and David are from Locket's Meadow Farm. So I will give you some background information about the farm, and we'll have their contact information at the end of the show. Kathleen Schurman, along with her husband David, have owned Locket's Meadow Farm and Sanctuary since 2000. They started rescuing PMU foals. Can we say quickly what PMU stands for?
Pregnant mare urine.
Foals. Okay, we'll talk about
We'll
that
explain about that,
in
yeah.
great detail later. In 2001, and since then they have saved hundreds of horses from slaughter and placed many of them in adoptive homes. Others have been trained as lesson or therapeutic riding horses, while still others are unable to work and are retired on the sanctuary. They also rescue and give sanctuary to other farm animals, including pigs, goats, sheep, donkeys, chickens, roosters, ducks, and geese, and of course cats and dogs. Kathleen has written several children's books about their experiences with animal rescue, much of them from the animal's point of view. Along with her work as an author and journalist, Kathleen also works as an animal communicator, medium, and healer, with all proceeds from her readings going directly to supporting the sanctuary residents. The rescue is a 501(c) nonprofit organization. However, 99% of the costs are self-funded by both David and Kathleen. So it's a real labor of love.
Yes, it's all
Yes.
it is. There's no money in horses, that's for sure.
We always like to ask our guests how they first gotten started in this type of work. So what drew you to create a sanctuary?
I have always rescued animals, and he, by default, once we got together,
Your
has
husband, yeah.
pretty much been trapped. But on a smaller scale, I lived in Milford in a beach house, and even when we were in Milford, we had ducks and chickens and goats in our backyard. We moved out to Bethany, and we bought 5.5 acres. And I thought about, we'd gotten, one horse, then 2, and then we bought the property next door, which had a large barn on it, and I was like, yes, here we go. And that was it. Within months, we started rescuing horses from slaughter. He didn't know. It's like, just one, right? Just one, just 2, right?
They're like potato
That's it,
chips.
right? That's it. By the end of the first year, he was losing count. And that was pretty much, that was it. And then he stopped arguing with me. I think it was the 5th one, we brought in Ernie. And I didn't even tell him about him until almost just before he got there. And I was referring to him in my mind as the divorce horse. This is the one that's going to throw him over the edge. Anyway,
He's still
there.
here.
Yes,
The
and
horse
so is
and the
Ernie.
husband.
You know what they say? Real men love animals. So
There you go.
I guess that puts me in the right category.
that's right. So how many horses do you have now?
40-something on the farm.
40-something.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good for you, Dave.
He gets up early in the morning. He's a good boy.
Oh, and I've been there, and I know, and I've petted the pigs, and I've seen the goats and the sheep and the, what do you call them again?
The alpacas.
Alpacas.
Yes.
And beautiful dogs. Oh, it's just a wonderful, wonderful place. What effect does your rescue have on your daily life and your spiritual life?
daily life, we go to bed really early compared to most people.
This is late for us.
This is late. We are up very early. He's up 3:44 in the morning.
Yeah.
He does some of his own work, and then he heads out by 5 a.m. And he starts the chores on the house side of the farm before, and probably gets 3 hours of chores in before you go to your office.
Oh my gosh.
I do the house chores. There's a lot of animals in the house as well earlier, and then I join him outside, and after he goes to work, I continue doing outside chores until he gets home, and then we both do more outside chores. There's a lot of, it's a lot of work, it is, but we love it. You become addicted to it. But as far as spiritually, it's interesting. When you spend a lot of time with animals, and it's very quiet, there's not a lot of people around. You're really by yourself with these animals, and you hear things. It opens you up to a lot that, people are so busy all day long, and they're always, it's technology, and it's, running around and driving in the car. When you're leading horses, and you're rubbing a pig's belly and all of these things that we do all day long, it opens you up to hearing things that I don't think most people ever hear.
Right.
And it all happens on this very deep spiritual level. Animals can bring you places that way that a lot of people will never go.
They're always talking to us, right?
Yep.
We just don't
Always.
listen.
No, people don't listen. They don't understand that when I do an animal communication session, and it's so funny, animals, they'll pop up with, okay, you've had this dog for 5 years now, and you got him when he was like 6 months old, and they're always, how does that dog know that? Well, just because you can't hear him, they understand so much about where they came from, and they can describe in very clear detail the people that they lived with before. I mean, they know so much. They're talking to us all the time. They're trying to communicate with us. We're not listening. Well, I am. But even sometimes I'm busy and I miss things, and I'm so mad at myself that I did, because I can hear it.
Most people don't listen.
Yeah, the other day, I might have shared this with you. I have a little rescued Min Pin dog.
Oh, yeah.
He's more like a cat. And I was upstairs in the office computer, and I was thinking, recycling's going to close soon. I got to drive to recycling. So I get off the computer, go change my shoes, and as I'm changing my shoes, I think to myself, I bet Milo would like to go for the ride. I think it. Milo's the dog. I think it, and I hear him jump off the couch downstairs. I hear his chains run up to me.
Right.
I'm like,
you were saying?
yeah, I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. It's interesting with animals, and I mean, I have so much to talk about, but if you pictured that in your head, so many animals communicate
Through pictures, right?
through pictures in their head. So if you visualize this dog in the car with you, there's a really good chance that this dog saw your visual. It's the way herds of
Isn't that
horses
funny?
can communicate with each other. It's not so much talking to each other. One will see the predator coming, and instantly they all see what that one saw. They communicate on this really fascinating level. So yeah, if you pictured it and you're connected to your dog, and it sounds like you are, your dog saw it. So
Exactly. My cat knows when I have to do something, or if I have to get up, he's on my lap, and I have to go to the bathroom. And I'm thinking it, and next thing I know, he jumps off.
lucky
have
you,
to
mine
get one.
don't.
Yours don't?
Oh, I'm like, oh. There's some fat ones in that kitchen. They're always parked on my lap.
That's cute. That's cute.
Oh.
So how do all these rescued animals find you, or do you find them?
It is a combination. There are so many different scenarios as to how they come to us. Sometimes just before we got here, my phone was ringing, and I'm like, oh, Lordy, it's Kelly Connor. She's in Pennsylvania, and she knows of, as horses come into New Holland, which is a big auction yard where there are a lot of kill buyers buying them for slaughter, and I know she's calling me to talk to me about a potential rescue. So it's online, it's, I hear voices. That's how we got Ernie, as a matter of fact.
But it's like cell division. When you start with one, and then you have 3, and then you have 9, and it just builds. And after several years, you're just
Well,
the
we're
magnet.
kind
You're-
of the go-to in the area. People know what we do after a while. I get calls from
New Jersey.
from everywhere, But for example, Cheyenne, the pony that was right in our own town. She was locked in a stall for well over a year, standing in manure this deep, and I got a call from the animal control officer saying, "Can you help? We need to get her out right now." And I sent Ashley, who works with me, and I'm like, "You go, I am so tired of seeing these conditions. I'm so tired of seeing these things. You go, bring her home. We'll patch her up." And then I get a call, "We can't get her to come out of the stall. She needs to be sedated." I'm like, "Oh God, I didn't want to." But it was, in the end, it was good. I went, I gave her the sedation. Her hooves were so overgrown, they curled up like
God in
little
heaven.
elf shoes. It took about half an hour for us to get her out of there and down the hill. In the end, it was good. I was the one who got her out, and she ended up staying with us. And I can do anything with her, even when she's having a tough time. And now she's good. She's fine
very
now.
good.
She's wonderful. But between, being asked to help with different cases, seeing things online, hearing voices.
But it's developed too over the
Yeah.
years. I mean, especially with social media coming on. Before, when you're just on the internet, you could search and
Right.
you could find them. But with social media, they really find you. Yeah.
If you could just enlighten myself and our viewers, you mentioned a horse auction.
Right. Here's the thing. We used to focus on PMU mares, PMU foals, and we can talk about that a little later. At this point, the situation for horses in the United States is so dire because the economy is so terrible. People can't afford them. So they send them off to auction. They're going to sell them, make some money, and they cross their fingers and hope their horse goes to a good place. Their horses are not going to a good place. There are quotas, these guys who are kill buyers. They have to meet them. And they're going to places like New Holland in Pennsylvania, and they are loading trailers with horses, and they are driving directly to Canada, Mexico, and these horses are all going to slaughter. Whenever we can.
So these are perfectly healthy horses.
Oh, yeah. Everybody wants to think the horses going to slaughter are in terrible condition, they're not trained. Oh, we've gotten some wonderful horses, wonderful horses. And we've gotten some decrepit old horses that I wasn't sure they were going to live through the trailer ride, but we felt that they deserved better.
Sure.
And some of them have done well, some of them didn't do as well, but they got to live out to the end of their lives
With
comfortably.
dignity. Yeah.
Right, and they were, when any of our animals die or have to be put down, we're right there, we're holding them, we're with them. They died knowing somebody loved them.
Right.
And that's,
Yeah,
sometimes
exactly.
we are a hospice. We have a lot of hospice horses on the farm right now.
we do.
And we will keep them until they cross over, and we will be there with them, and we will bury them, and we will take care of them.
But
So-
there's a good point. You asked about how does it affect your spiritual life. When there's no other purpose but to live, and for many of our animals, that's just their job,
Right.
just to live, and you work so hard at that, and they give back to you in ways that you can't really describe. You just have to experience them. It changes. It answers the questions that so many people, get so jazzed up about all their life, about meanings of life. And
Yeah, we
there
don't have
comes
to
that,
wonder what that is.
but there comes that point, and it happened to me, so I can speak to this, with experience. There comes a point where you don't have to ask that question anymore. You just sort of know it from the inside out. Life is just life, and in our world, people think there has to be a purpose always. There's always an end to the means. But there's not. Most of our animals, a lot of our animals, just live.
Well, Penny was pulled from, not the New Holland auction. She was in a kill pen down in Kentucky. She had pneumonia. She was mostly dead. And they're like, "Why are you doing this?" I'm like, just get her up here. Get her on the trailer. He's like, the driver was like, "She's not going to make it. She's going to die on my trailer." I'm like, "Put her in the very back. If she dies on the trailer, we'll get her off. Just get her here." I don't go myself because there are too many horses I have to say no to. It just about kills me. And she came up half dead, got her off the trailer. She had pneumonia. Oh, she was a mess. Had her on antibiotics forever. It took several years before I was like sure she was okay, and even then we couldn't get weight on her. I was concerned that she wouldn't make it through the winter. And then somebody, thank God for social media, suggested chia seeds online for putting weight on another sick horse.
Yeah.
I started her on chia seeds. I'll never eat chia seeds because I'm concerned about weight gain. She gained like 300 pounds.
Oh my God.
I'm seriously, because she's fat.
Oh.
I'm seriously considering, do we put her down so she doesn't suffer through the winter? She's one of the chubbiest horses on the farm because we found the key ingredient, right? But she doesn't do anything. She hasn't ridden. She just loves. She just loves. She loves everybody. She snuggles, she cuddles, she gives kisses. She doesn't have to have a job, anything other than existing. And she was getting loaded onto a trailer the next day to go, I think she was headed to Mexico. You know? What, and people are like, why?
Well, this
Why?
isn't so
But-
profound, but you know, when you go through all this every day and you're taking care of these old horses, it's like, you know, I hope somebody does this for me.
Yeah, seriously. As we start to get old and we start to think, how are we going to keep doing this?
See, the egotistical nature of man thinks that we're so much better than anything else.
That's right.
And we're so much better than animals. I see it all the time on Facebook when
Yeah.
when something will come about eating them and things like that. You should see the things they say. And
Right.
it's there, you know, there's nothing wrong with just letting it live its life. It's a being. It's God created it. It has a
Right.
soul.
But
You know,
don't you
it survives
notice-
after death. Can't.
Right. They spend way too much time trying to justify
Oh.
it. Way too much time trying to justify what they do. I never tell anybody that I'm vegan, and I don't, you know, I
Right.
don't. If they ask, I answer the question. And they immediately start talking about how we really don't eat very much meat, maybe a little fish, and then they start to justify that. And I'm like, I didn't ask. I didn't ask.
Right.
They can do what they want. But if they allowed themselves to really think, and it's very hard to break away from the way you were raised.
Yeah.
My father was very upset with me when I announced I was going to become a vegetarian almost 32 years ago. He eventually got over it, but I'm healthier, I'm happier, and I followed my conscience, and it's easier to live with myself that way.
Well, you
So-
know, a lot of people quote the Bible, and you know, I studied it, so I know what I'm talking. So I
Yeah.
would know what I was talking about. And in the Old Testament, which is all made up of people worshiping gods, not God, but different things, it always says, "Kill the animal, eat the animal." Da, da, da. So they say they're put here for us to eat. They're put here for us to eat. I said they're put here to comfort you and to teach you,
Yeah.
and you're not getting it. So
Yeah.
I gotta be quiet. Okay, I get off on this. I'll tell
you have
you.
an agenda, it's okay.
Oh.
It's your show.
Okay, well, I was going to ask you what was most difficult about rescuing, but you already told us what's difficult about rescuing.
Oh, there's a lot of difficult things about rescuing.
Yeah, is there?
The hardest thing I have to say is sometimes we have to say no.
Yeah, what make you, how do you decide that?
One, no room. You know, I mean, sometimes, you know, things get really close. This is a very expensive thing to do. The thought of actually bringing in another animal right now, our bills are extremely high, and all we do is this. We have nothing else that we do. And we reach a point, for example, there's a pig. All right, there's a pig, fell off a truck.
I read
found
on
the
Facebook.
highway.
Yes.
Right. Okay. I would normally just say, we've got to get that pig. They had found a rescue in Massachusetts that it was
Yeah.
going to go to, and then they decided that he shouldn't cross state lines. Okay. For us to be able to bring that pig, we would have to do a whole bunch of pig fencing. Our pig pens, our
And
areas
pig
for the
fencing
pigs,
is not easy to
it
do.
is not. Those
Those,
suckers,
they can.
oh, they can take down fencing. You've got to put posts into cement, and there's very specific fencing for pigs that they can't get through it. And it's like, so it's a whole day's work. It's probably $500-600 worth of fencing, and then maybe another $300-400 to build a little pig hut. And we don't have it right now.
Yeah.
So, and I've gotten, you know, I get tagged every day, all day long on this pig, and I'm like, oh God, I wish I could. We can't.
I know. I saw that on Facebook, but somebody did take it.
No.
went to a sanctuary, didn't it?
No, they decided.
The latest one?
Yeah, that was today.
They decide,
They're
no.
not, because they don't want it to cross state lines. It's in Massachusetts. The pig has been sick. It has to have a clean bill of health to go across state lines. You know, for us, it would be, we'd have to have, you know, $1,000 laying around and about 7 or 8 hours to spend a day getting everything all set up for this pig to come in. And then on top of that, he would have to be castrated. That's several $100s for that. So it's an expensive proposition. We cannot right now, in good conscience, take this pig and get it right. So we
I know that
can't.
sometimes you just can't.
Full-grown pig will go
No.
through.
Mention the fundraising piece now?
Yeah. You want to do it or want me to read it?
You have
Read
it.
All right. I want to say this right now while we're on this subject. And if you missed this information, I want to tell you how you can help Kathleen and Dave with the farm with either money or with your time. As donations can be made by PayPal on their website, which will give you the information at the end, or by purchasing Locket Meadow fresh red pasta sauce at Edge of the Woods, Bethany Florist and Gift Shop, Sunflower Farm of Orange, or the Red Barn of Woodbridge, Locket Meadow Brooks. The Long Road Home and Captain of the Dance are available online at Amazon or BarnesandNoble.com. And these are their books, The Long Road Home, Captain of the Dance. I wish I told you to bring them. You could have should them.
I thought of it, and then there were last-minute things.
So all these things will help them with the costs that they have, help defray these costs. And if you want to volunteer your time, they'd be more than welcome. And we'll give you all the information how to get a hold of them. And if you want to know about what I just said again, please call or email me. You all know how to do that, and I'll give it to you again. All right.
And you are a 501(c)(3).
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it would be
Yeah.
Right, it's a tax deductible.
It's tax deductible for you
donation.
to help.
Right. Good.
Okay? Dig
But you know,
down deep.
But there's other ways that you can donate too, like Cal. We got a
right.
buddy Cal who we never knew, and probably during the summer, once every 3 weeks, Cal shows up with a van, and he's a produce guy, and
Right.
he'll have boxes of squash or pallets of tomatoes.
Well,
or
that's what we feed to the pigs. They prefer. We won't give them junk food. All the other farmers, because they're going for slaughter, feed them all the day-old bread. Our guys, because we don't want them heavy, it's too much for their legs, we feed them produce. And Cal comes by with a couple 100 pounds of produce every few weeks, and happy pigs, happy mommy.
God bless Cal.
So
Is there any other way to say it right now? Is there any other that they can do?
Oh, we can always use like
Lumber.
2x6s.
2x6s. Oh lordy, they're always breaking those
10 to
fence
12
boards.
foot 2x6s.
Yeah, they're taking down fence boards.
Always
right and left.
use barn brooms. We can.
Brooms, push brooms.
Oh my God!
The
Yeah,
corn-
buckets.
buckets. Yeah.
You have a wish list on your website, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
Oh,
And is
good.
that all
Okay.
listed there?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Gosh, I hope so. I have to
Yeah,
check it.
I think it is, but please contact me.
Spotlights. You know the bulbs.
yeah.
Bulbs. Bulbs are
Bulbs,
good.
spotlight bulbs.
Yep, all light bulbs.
So contact myself or Kathleen or Dave and find out, or Lisa, and find out what they need. You know, please help out. Okay.
You can always use bulbs, duct tape, some of that stuff. And
Duct
we're not
tape.
talking about big quantities. You know,
Right.
roll of duct tape will last us for a long time. Then you
Unless
might-
the horse has an abscess, and then it lasts us for 5 days.
That's right.
We wrap diapers around their feet when we're treating them for abscesses. So, and that's all. You'll go through a whole roll of duct tape. It's the funny little things. Pampers. If a horse with an abscess could go through an entire package of Pampers in a week. You know, tons of odds and ends.
There's so much thing, and this is right here in Bethany, folks. So
Not far.
it's not far, and you really should get out and see the farm. It'll just do your heart really, really good.
And we love visitors. We love
they do.
visitors. It's not the kind of place you don't have to have an appointment. You can come by and visit. And the horses are all, it's good for socializing the horses. It's good for everybody. The animals are all really nice animals.
The doggies love it too.
But
Yeah.
there was one point, I think, in the middle of the winter, and we were getting visitors, and we were working way too many hours. Kathleen taped the sign to the back door because we had to take a nap. It just said, "Go away."
tired. So tired. You know, with the snow, because we're shoveling, so we're doing everything else, but we're shoveling and shoveling and shoveling.
Oh, it was a rough winter.
Oh, God, it never stopped. Are you kidding?
22 storms, somebody reminded me
It
today.
was crazy. It was crazy. And you can get really tired. And I try to never snap at anybody. I really, because I know they love the animals, and I know they want to be there for a good reason. But there are days where you just don't want them to come to the door.
Well, but you have to imagine, with the cats and the dogs and the parrots in the house, if somebody comes up the driveway, somehow the parrots.
It starts with the donkeys, the little burros.
Yeah,
the burros all start. They sound like Harley Davidsons warming up. So they get going, and then the geese and the ducks get going.
Yeah,
it's just,
they announced us. The rooster crowed too.
And the rooster, the one by the back door, and then the dogs. There's 4 dogs going crazy, and then the parrots kick in, and it is insanely loud. It's insanely loud.
You even have beautiful peacocks.
Yes.
Rescuing peacocks?
Well, they were, they're an interesting story. There was a guy in Bethany, they had to actually do a raid, and it was a puppy mill, and they had hundreds of birds, and some of them were peacocks. We got some birds from there. They were being kept at a pound. And the peacocks are interesting. I thought, we'll have peacocks wandering around the yard. They don't understand how to be they're in a run like the chickens because they were kept in these little tiny crates. They lived in little crates. All their feathers were all worn down to little nubs. It was like 3 years before that male actually, and now he's gorgeous when he opens up the whole fan. But if you turn them loose, they don't know what to do, and they just like take off and start running frantically around. And we had one loose in the neighborhood. Prince was loose for, I don't know, 3 or 4 days. Boy, I'll tell you, that was fun chasing him down. We finally caught him. We all burst out of the woods. There's 6 of them, 6 of us chasing after this white peacock running through this guy's backyard. He's weed whacking. He's like, and we're all running after this white peacock.
He had no idea. He probably thought it was the FBI coming through the woods or something.
Oh, God, it was so
a manhunt.
I'm like, we're sorry. We're tearing through. But anyway,
he ended up being like the head of the Lions Club.
I know.
We got
And
to
there
know
was
him pretty
another
well.
story. Everybody talks about us. These things happen, but anyway, but the peacocks can't be loose because they don't know how.
Yeah.
They just they have to be in a run, and I feel really bad, but we can't. They're terrified. They're, when they've been
raised like that,
and they. All right. For example, this is a thing with birds. If you take a hen that's been in a battery cage in these huge egg farms, okay? And we've gotten some that have fallen off of trucks, and I love them. They're always the sweetest animals. If you take it out of the cage for the first time and you set it down, they know exactly how much space they had in these little battery cages. They will walk 2 feet that way, 2 feet that way, a few inches that way, a few inches that way. It takes them hours to realize that they can walk further than 2 feet because they've been in this little tiny thing with like 5 other chickens for so long. And with birds, it takes a while for them to understand that they can go further. And the first one we got, Bernice, I'm like, come on. And she's like, she stops. She freezes at the barrier, but they get over it. I've never been able to get these peacocks to just adjust to being loose in the yard. And now we have so many hawks, I don't think they can be. The hawks have picked up and there's a lot of them now.
The what? The what?
So, the hawks.
Oh, you have the hawks. I didn't see them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we have.
They're not ours. They're just
the
the
hawks and the wild hawks.
But they have names.
Oh, really? Visiting hawks, huh?
I've had arguments with a few.
Well, tell the story.
Well, there's one hawk, and I looked out the window and I saw a duck upside down in the pond, and I was like, my ducks. I've always loved ducks. I've had them since I was a little girl. And I went racing outside, and I look up, and there is a hawk in the tree overhead. And I'm like, my duck is dead. And I pick this duck up, and I'm holding her, and I'm screaming.
She was dead?
Yeah. She just must have come down and just nailed her, and then she couldn't get at her because she was floating in the pond because they just hit him really hard. And I'm holding this duck, and I'm screaming. I'm like, don't you ever ever do that to any of my birds in this yard. Don't you ever do that. I said, you go to that barn. You want to eat something? You take those rats out. And I'm screaming at this just to take care of you. There's plenty of rats. Eat them, right? Honest to God, that night, I go outside and I'm like, what is that noise behind that little duck hut? And I look, and there's this hawk eating a rat behind the duck hut. And she looks at me and she's like, okay, I got it. No, when I yell, I use the mommy voice like nobody, you wouldn't even believe it.
Yeah, I've heard.
It is a scary thing. And this, well, let me tell you.
Yes, ma'am.
It was winter.
The
It was cold, and the rats get a little busy in the winter because the cats aren't out. Honest to God, she ended up clearing out every rat in the barn. She would go and she would sit on one of the stall doors and she would wait for the rats to come out, and she would dive down and snag them. And we would see everywhere. She was
The hawk would be in the barn.
in the barn,
Sitting there.
in the
You'd
grain
walk-
room, on the
It
desk.
was the most incredible thing.
Wow.
Drop down, pick off a few rats, go and eat them, come back for more. She got real slick. It was.
And then the hawk, in the same little confined area where the pond was, where she had gotten our
a
duck, she would go in there and just sit.
Just hang with the
Just
ducks.
hang with the ducks.
Oh, wow.
And
was
she,
like they
she
were
never
having
had a
this-
problem with her again.
She's still there.
She's there all the time.
All the time.
Her name is Victoria.
And she'll let you, she comes by and screams a little, let you know she's there.
Yeah, and I go, hey, Victoria. She flies and she circles right over my head all the time. So far, knock on something. So far, and she hasn't let any of the other hawks get anybody. It's a funky little farm, I gotta say. It really
Really is.
is.
No,
Really,
it's
you
a
just- you
spiritual
can't
farm.
believe this.
Yeah.
When I was there, Kathleen was feeding all the animals, carrying, I don't know how you lift these big bags. My friend and I were watching her, and she had these horses. They were way out in the other end of the where the fenced area is, and the two horses. One of them was Locket. Locket.
The two burros.
Yeah,
Yes.
2 burros. That's what it was.
Oh, that's right. You heard the mommy voice.
And she used a mommy voice. She's calm and calm. And then she gets on the fence a little bit and she goes, "Don't you make me come out there. You know what'll happen if I come out there." And the horses turned around and donkeys ran right back.
Nobody,
so cute.
Nobody wants mommy to yell. It's
Yeah.
not pretty.
That's cute. That's so cute.
Oh no, they come running.
So how would you say that rescuing has evolved since you began way back in 2001?
I gotta say, it's the internet. It's
Okay.
the internet. When we started rescuing, when I way back started rescuing, before there was an internet, it was all word of mouth and it was like tag team on the phone lines. Once the internet hit, that was it. It was because you could go to websites that would list, different animals that needed rescuing, that kind of thing. Social media, however, even from the time we started rescuing the PMUs.
Oh yeah, it's terrible.
When it was a lot of phone calling, the whole thing. Now, you boom, everything comes right up in your newsfeed, and what the desperate cases are. All of us who do this kind of rescue, we are all linked to each other, and as it comes up, if I can't do it, like Kelly calling me on the phone just before we got in here, she can't take one, she has no room, she's going to call me, but it's all coming up on my newsfeed. So it is evolved to where we've got a really good shot at saving a lot of animals. For example, the dogs, you see them pop up on your newsfeed all day long. There are a lot of dogs that get pulled from pounds at the last second now that nobody
Were they
ever
put
would
to
have known
sleep,
about.
yeah.
Nobody ever would have known about. We're able to rescue more dogs, more cats, and that kind of thing from animal shelters than ever before, because it's popping up right in front of our faces. So it's evolved to the point where, I think it's incredibly efficient, and we're doing a much better job of it. So, and the word is out there. It's changed a lot. It's great. It's actually great.
The system has evolved. The economy
Right.
kills it. There's so many more animals available.
Right.
Because unfortunately, especially large animals like horses, when things get tough, one of the parents gets laid off,
Yeah.
it's the first to go. The
Yep.
horse is the
They're
first to go.
insanely expensive. There's no question.
A horse will
Insanely
one
expensive.
horse will cost you about $500 a month to
That's just the
maintain.
basic, and that's if you're keeping them in your own backyard. So, and we have.
Because there's so many hidden things. It's it's not just the hay, it's the shavings for the stall, it's the grain, it's the vet, it's the farrier, it's...
Yeah.
How did you get the alpacas?
When the economy tanked, everybody was buying alpacas. They were this great investment. They were going to make them tons and tons of money. The fleece is worth so much money. They were paying $20,000 to $40,000 plus for these alpacas to breed them, and they were going to make a fortune. When the economy fell apart, there was no longer a market for the alpaca wool. People were going to spend $800 for an alpaca sweater, and that was it. So a lot of these alpaca farms that had bred so many of them were giving them away. They were giving them away. So, and I knew somebody who, they're down to, I mean, they had 30 at one time, and they're down to just 4 pet ones now. And we took several of theirs. So, yeah, I mean, these were the exotic animals that everybody had to have. And I'm like, wow, I wish I had an alpaca. Boy, you know, careful what you wish for, right?
You really have to be careful what you wish for.
I really, I open my mouth, and it's like they just start to show up, like within sometimes minutes.
And I saw how you shave the sheep.
Yes.
Now, there's some people who shave sheep really bad. They're nicked and cut and bleeding and everything. But yours were all smooth. I said that to my friend. I said, look how nice those sheep are shaved.
We
nice
got
and smooth
we have
and everything.
a nice guy who came in and did. I don't think he nicked a single one of them. Not a single one of them.
Yeah.
He did a phenomenal job. We have to talk about PMU, though. It just occurs to me.
Yes.
We don't want to forget, because a lot of people think that it doesn't really exist anymore.
Okay.
It's because I had a hot flash and I started thinking about Premarin, and we needed to talk about it. I'm sorry. Okay.
So PMU is?
PMU, pregnant mare urine, okay? And it's probably 60 years ago that they started manufacturing the drug Premarin, made from urine that is taken from pregnant mares, because this urine is high in estrogen, okay? So they have, at one point there were over 400 ranches, some of them with hundreds of mares, always pregnant on them. The mares are kept in these very narrow, they pack them in as close as they can. They're tied in stalls. They stand for the 6 months, during which time the estrogen is the highest concentration in their urine. They're all lined up. There's all these big tanks behind them, and there's this hoses and apparatus, and everything is all tied to them. It chafes them, it hurts them, but they just keep peeing away, and they collect it all up, and they make a lot of money, or they had made a lot of money, selling this urine to Wyeth Ayers, which is now owned by Pfizer. So after 6 months, they're turned out in the fields, March, around in there, April. They deliver all of these babies in May, and they're out in the fields. The stallions are out there. They have a full heat, it's called, maybe 2 or 3 weeks after they deliver. They're impregnated right then. They're allowed to remain with their babies until August. And then the babies are all separated out, and the mares are pregnant again. They're brought back in and hooked up again. If they're not pregnant, if they didn't get pregnant, generally they're sent to slaughter as well. Most of the babies in the past have been sent, they've been sent directly to slaughter. And that is for meat for human consumption, predominantly in Europe and Asia.
The babies, the children, horses.
Yeah, 4 months old. We have, I don't know how many, we rescued 4-month-olds coming in generally September, October. We were bringing them in by the truckload. We buy them by the pound. Our horses we buy by the pound, because we're buying them at meat prices. So.
And they always come in at 2 in the morning when it's 31 degrees and raining.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
So horse consumption is illegal in the U.S.?
It's not, well, I think technically we just don't do it. We just don't do it.
But there's a big market in Europe and Asia?
There's a big market in Europe and Asia.
In Canada too? In Canada they eat it?
No, they don't eat it in Canada.
They just slaughter them there.
Right. The market, interesting, the market in the United States is in Florida. People are like stealing and butchering horses in Florida. It's generally people from Cuba. There's a lot of ethnic groups that they're stealing people's pet horses, which is insane. All of these horses have been given drugs and medications that are actually carcinogens and do not leave their systems. Most of these horses that are going to slaughter have been treated with things that make them not okay for human consumption. They're toxic, and yet they're shipping them over, and they're eating them, in other countries. About between 130 and 140,000 horses every single year are slaughtered for food.
That's horrible.
And most of them going to and that's in Mexico and Canada. Most of them are coming from our country. People keep breeding and breeding and breeding and breeding, and there is no place else for these horses to go to. The PMU industry has always been a dumping grounds to the meat markets because there's a byproduct. You end up with a foal when you're collecting urine from a pregnant mare. No, there's nobody needs that many horses. So
For a while, they were putting it on the internet a lot about, don't buy Premarin, or the other one, what you call it? Prempro.
Yeah.
And how it was bad for you, and it was bad for you.
Right.
I haven't seen an ad in a long time.
They've changed the names,
But
and
so people think, it's okay, but
that's not it. It's
not
still
okay.
out there. They've
That's
reduced
right.
the dosages. They're saying it's safe now. They're trying to come up with different purposes because they stockpiled a lot of this, and they're trying to unload it. How can taking a drug made from urine be okay?
I know.
They have synthetically duplicated this, and there are drugs that do the exact same thing. Nobody gets hurt, and doctors are so used to always prescribing the same drugs, and most doctors don't even know.
No.
They don't know where this comes from. So it's a tragic industry. Really, we were talking before we started. Do you ever ask your doctor what these drugs are made from? You would never assume it was made from horse urine, Never. It wouldn't cross your mind.
Right.
So it's, and while the business has decreased dramatically, it still does exist. And we don't get as many PMUs at this point, really, because there's a pretty good network still that are taking them out of Canada. And what's so urgent in our area are these horses that are being sent to basically slaughter auctions and are being picked up by the kill buyers. And
They do that to racehorses too, don't they?
sure do. We have several. We have several that came from similar situations. They're sent to auction. Perfectly nice horses, These are, for crying out loud, we've got Leo on our farm. We rescued his mama on her way to slaughter. And his background is his mother was out of Lord Byron, who was out of Secretariat.
Oh, wow.
And his father, I have his paperwork, has a background with War Admiral, Man of War, and Northern Dancer. He has Triple Crown winners on both sides, and his mom, pregnant with him, was on her way to slaughter. We drove down to Pennsylvania in an ice storm to get that one. We pulled 3 pregnant mares.
But now tell just how incredible Leo is, given that background.
Oh, he's such
He's
a slug.
Dope.
He was premature. He was premature, and that was like weeks of me pretty much sleeping out in the paddock with him. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. You name it, it happened.
He's absolutely
his mom
Peter Pan. He's never grown up.
Mom had
never grown up.
had no milk, had to be bucket fed. He had no immunities because there was no colostrum, so he had to have a transfusion. He was allergic to the transfusion. He had a terrible reaction, almost died from that. Had diarrhea all the time, so he had pink on his lips from me siphoning Pepto-Bismol into him.
That was terrible.
He had Desitin on his butt because the fake milk gave him diarrhea. So I was washing his butt all day long. And he is the sweetest thing. And I would go out and I would sit in the paddock and he would come over and he would lay down with his head in my lap. I think he would still do that if I went out and sat in the paddock because we did it for so long,
That's so
But
nice. God.
and he's just this big baby. He's this big baby. He's beautiful. But I don't think he'd ever win a race. I don't think.
Never.
What makes your sanctuary different from others? Anything?
Well, one, it's not, while we're a nonprofit, this is ours. It's ours. The property
we're
is.
really nonprofit.
We're really hardcore nonprofit. But it's ours. It's our farm. This is where we live.
Right.
This is what we do. And if we never got a nickel for a donation, we would still do it. And we would just work harder and find more jobs and make more money to cover it. I think most sanctuaries, they rely on donations, and they can only do as much as what the donations will come in. It's also the land that we live on has this interesting energy, and you'd have to be there. It almost has this like there's a feel to it. The place wants to be what it is. I have this relationship with the farm, and it tells me what it wants, and I say, okay, I'll try. And then we just bust our butts to make it happen.
There's spirit in the ground. There's Mother Earth. There's spirit. And I think you said to me once, too, there's some Native American spirits that are around there all the time, because Native Americans love the land and love the animals
and
so much.
And they love their horses.
Yes.
I have spirit guides on the other side who are Native Americans, and it has been an interesting education, because they didn't show up until we ended up on this property.
Wow.
And I've learned an awful lot. I've learned an awful lot from them. So, but their respect for these animals. If you talk to even a live one, but if you talk to, say, a Native American Indian chief on the other side, and they talk about respect for horses and these animals that did so much for them, and when they understand the hell these horses go through, and the terrible lives they lead, and then off to slaughter and the whole thing, and that is disrespectful to an animal who has done so much for the human race. And they are, so what we do there, they approve of. So it's like we kind of have their blessing that we do this there.
And it's so wonderful that you're able to do this, that you're so spiritual and you're so, peaceful, that you're able to communicate with the spirits of the animals, with the animals themselves, with the Native American spirits, the spirits of Mother Earth. That's wonderful. And I think that the more you are where you are and do what you do, the more spiritual you become. If you could become any more spiritual than you are, I don't know, but
you don't think you can, and then it just keeps happening. I had an experience a year ago that brought everything to a whole new level, and when one of my horses died, and that was Falstaff, who was the best horse on the farm, my first horse I ever had, and we had this terrible virus run through the farm, and he's the only horse that died. You took him up to Tufts, and they said there's nothing they could do, and it was this horrible experience for me to not be there when my horse died. It was a nightmare. But what happened was, as he was crossing over, one of my spirit guides, who's a chief on the other side, asked me, can I have him for my horse? And I'm like, I want him for my horse! I'm like sobbing in my living room. But as he crossed over, I knew he crossed over, and then he's there in my living room. And there's the Indian chief, and he's like, I would like to give you a gift in exchange for this horse. I know I sound like a nutcase, but
the people who know understand.
I do. But to me, I sound like a nutcase. 10 years ago, I would have laughed at me. But you live it, and it keeps happening. And then I realize, and all of a sudden my arms are flopping around and shaking. I'm like, what is this? And I realize I'm being given this gift, and I'm like, can I have an instruction manual, please?
Yes.
I don't know what you just gave me, but I always had been able to do healing, and he gave me these medicine women on the other side who heal through my hands.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, okay, it's great because it does amazing things for people. But that back and forth, if you're in touch with the other side and things are back and forth all the time, I was just really fortunate that I was able to understand what they were doing for me in exchange for him getting this phenomenal horse, So
That's wonderful.
But it keeps growing. I think, well, what could be more than that? Well, I don't know what'll happen next year. We'll find out.
Do you have any other human help around?
We got Ryan. We had a really tough time finding people. Nobody wants to work hard, and we don't ask anybody to even work as hard as we do. That would be criminal. So we finally got somebody. Maybe what?
January 1st.
January, yeah, dead of winter. He came in, the worst winter ever. He stuck it out. So he does the stalls for us, which is because we used to do all the stalls ourselves, and there's a lot of stalls. 30 every morning before we went and did our other work. So he helps us. And I have a trainer who lives on the farm, and she works with the horses too. So
There are things people could do for you, though?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of things.
Well, we have a lot of, the older horses love to be groomed. If people know how to groom, they could come and they could just fawn all over these older horses. It makes them so happy. They're not in the lesson program, so they don't get that same hands-on, like grooming all the time
Right.
that the other horses get.
Are there things people that don't really know much about can do for you too? That they can't groom or anything? Is there?
If they can pick rocks out of a field.
Okay, so there are things that people can do. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there are. There's plenty of things. Sometimes we'll have a work day where people can come and just help repair fencing, pick rocks. Oh gosh, if you like weeding gardens, please come weed my gardens. I just can't get to I can't. There's not enough time to get to everything, and
I'm thinking like a community service for a Boy Scout or Girl Scout group?
Because we're a nonprofit, these kids who have to work off their hours. Oh, the other thing is I teach a therapeutic riding program, and I always need people to assist me, and help with the leading and the sidewalking of the horses. Because, a lot of these horses have been trained to do the therapy. And so every Monday night, I need at least 10 volunteers to help me with this program. And, if I had more volunteers, I'd add more time to the program.
Right.
But we don't charge, we charge so little for this particular program so that more people can ride. It's mostly autistic adults, a few Down syndrome adults. And, instead of like $45, $50, we only charge $30 so that we just want these horses to be able to do this job. Right. So unless we have volunteers to assist, you can't pay anybody when you charge that little.
Right.
We have to have the volunteers to keep the program running. So if
and in terms of community spirit or time and community contribution, we have Aiden, who is getting his...
at Eagle Scout, his project, 10 years ago, we built the platform that you can bring the wheelchairs up, and it's in tough shape. It's not quite tall enough for some of our bigger horses, and it's a struggle getting people off and on some of these very big horses who do such a good job with therapy. They're very gentle. And for his Eagle Scout project, he just presented it the other day, and he got approved, and he's coming in and he's building us a brand new ramp.
Oh, terrific.
Bigger, better, taller. So
And he's an Eagle Scout?
he's an Eagle Scout. Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
So that when he came and he's like, "Is there anything I can do here?" Because he's been coming to the barn off and on since he was 7, and I'm like, oh, how are you with a saw and a hammer? Because we really need and he's doing it. So that will be a real gift to us. It will make things so much easier just for mounting and dismounting.
Well, you see, folks, there's many things you can do even if you don't know anything about animals. And you know what? It is so good for your soul, really. Okay, so when would you know that you were ready to retire, and how would you be able to pass the torch if you did?
That's a tough one. We talk about that. At this point, we're working on trying to cut back. We're in our 50s, and our kids don't do this. Between us, we have 5 children. They don't do this. So
they are scared to death.
They're scared to death. If anything happens to us, they don't know what they're going to do. So we actually we're trying to think, because I'm thinking we're not young. Maybe 10 years down the line, we really have to figure out how to get a plan into place. I'm hoping that we can get the farm to where it's somehow producing enough income that the horses will be taken care of and the animals will be taken care of. And, we would have to really build a lesson program to see that happen. That hasn't been my focus.
I'll tell you, generally, this farm absolutely comes through for us at the last minute. Every single time. We don't have the time to tell all the stories. But answering that question, there's just no concern because we know that the answer will come.
And I believe that too. I'm just sitting here thinking, I asked that question, but for what you do and what's there and everything, I think you'll always have help and you'll always find a way and somebody will carry it on.
It's the animals help provide that, and they don't have the same sense of urgency that we do. So if we know that there's a payment due, like for hay, $4,000
a month.
They don't concern themselves with that until when the check is just about ready to be presented. But then something comes through and it's covered.
Yeah.
It's just the most incredible thing. We could tell you stories for the next hour on how that happens.
Well, maybe we'll have you come back and tell stories. Just tell stories. It's fun. People should know because whatever you do to an animal will be paid back in kind really. So
Yeah,
I'll
good or
tell
bad.
you. Yep.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's
Oh
true.
yeah, good and bad.
Yep.
Oh, definitely.
Do we have time for the last question?
Yeah, we have just a few more minutes.
If you could just tell us a little bit about the division amongst animal rescuers.
Yeah, I have to say, it's one of the disturbing things. I'm talking about, all of us communicating with each other online and being able to rescue more animals. The flip side of that, and you can go online and you can read one rescue trashing the other rescue, trashing the other rescue. You should hear the things people say, because they don't rescue the same way. And everybody has a very specific idea of how it should be done, and if it's not done that way, it's wrong. And I find it really upsetting. Granted, there are some rescues that I come across where I'm like, I don't think that's the way they should be doing it. And there are some rescues that are not really rescues, and some really unethical
people, yeah. Well,
Right.
full of that.
I wonder sometimes if that has kind of bred this kind of animosity between people. A lot of rescues are suspicious of other rescues, and it can get very ugly.
Could you give an example of that quickly?
I don't want to name names.
No, but just a scenario. 'Cause I'm
All right, there is one rescue, actually, it's under investigation in Pennsylvania right now, and it's a fairly large one. And I would have to say that they do some unethical things. The other rescues in that area are working really hard at compensating for some of the unethical things that they do. But those other rescues don't necessarily like each other. For example, one tends to rescue pregnant mares. Another rescue thinks she does the wrong things when she delivers the babies from those pregnant mares, and just trashes her online for the way she would assist at a delivery. Well, guess what? That mother was on her way to a slaughterhouse just a month or so before, baby inside. They got a shot, There has to be a way that we can learn how to be kinder to each other as we do this work. You can go online and you can look up things, and people have said nasty things about us. People who've never been to the farm who say that we are abusive of our animals. It's lies. It's lies. However, who's going to dispute it? If I don't catch it online, you can't find, anybody can say anything they want online.
right.
Okay, so I would say, seek the truth and ask around and everything. I think we're about out of time.
Right.
Went so fast. We're going to give your info because we want people to get in touch with you. I'm going to put that up right now. Okay. The contact information for Locket Meadows Farm to donate money or volunteer your time, it's www.locketsmeadow.com. To learn how you can help Kathleen and David and all of their wonderful animals, please visit their website at locketsmeadowfarm@yahoo.com. And please be patient, as they do most of their own animal care along with having jobs, and they're busy all day. She will get back to you. May not be immediately, but she will definitely get back to you.
And I apologize in advance.
And we'll give our contact information.
To learn more information about this show or any of our past shows, please contact us at healoutsidethebox@yahoo.com. To reach Rosemary, her number is 203-627-7966. Her website is www.rosemarylachance.com. To reach me, my phone number is 203-804-0024, and my website is www.theonejoy.com. We are also on Facebook under Healing Outside the Box.
Okay, tonight's quote is, "What struck me whenever I visited a farm was how much more sophisticated was the life the animals were capable of living than was assumed by those exploiting them. The more we are willing to see about their lives, the more we will see. Humans seem to take a perverse pleasure in attributing stupidity to animals when it's almost always entirely a question of human ignorance." And that's by Jeffrey Moseyeff Mason. Okay, it's time to say goodnight. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Wonderful.
That was a lot of
It was
fun.
wonderful,
Fishing.
and I'll be there. I'll be at your farm a lot. I love the animals.
Excellent. We love visitors.
Okay.
We really do.
Good night,
Unless you're
everyone.
napping.
Good night.
Good night.
Feel your thirst beside the river. Wash the journey from your hands.